Welcome back, folks, to another one of our talks. First of all, just a reminder to people, if you want to be in with a chance of getting your hands on some free ebooks, be sure to utilize our knowledge partners Packet Company. All you have to do, be in a chance of winning, is make sure that you rate the sessions, leave comments, and definitely use that Q&A section. I'm sure Jack wants to answer all them at the end, but I will waste no time, Jack. I believe you are here with a Molotov to talk about burning something down.
Yeah, I want to burn something down. That's right. Thank you very much. And thank you to all of you for having me. The title comes from watching stand-up comedy late at night. One of my favorite stand-up comedians, Sammy Obeid, said that he thinks in song titles. But when he said, "Who let the dogs out?" people start looking around searching for dogs. So don't worry, people. The roof is not literally not on fire. But what I want to do is to instill a sense of curiosity, maybe urgency, and the will to act and change some things. Because I can say I'm in a unique position as a person who has worked in the advertising industry, in the creative agencies for 23 years. So I kind of got old while doing this. And what Chris very rightfully said right before me in the previous session, yes, when you do something for a long time, you might become a bit of an expert, but then again, you might have some thought biases installed in your head. But I'm coming here, the last reference to the previous speech, there might be some logical flaws. There might be some distances to cover. There might be some leaps of faith you need to make to really understand this one. But even my background reflects that I'm coming here to talk to you from a point of pressure, a bit of frustration. I kind of feel like I'm back against the wall because I'm working. The best rejuvenation strategy I can recommend to any of you in the audience is to start getting interested in the new technology called Web3. This was the most, because in my last agency, I had a nickname, the Professor. Maybe because I'm already gray and I tend to know it all. So the question before was kind of referring to myself, even. Um, but yeah, it's a point of frustration because I, for last year, I have been studying mostly blockchain technologies, Web3, their applications in advertising, and that's where I'm coming from. So I'm kind of, half of me is in the past tense and half of me is in the future tense, and right here we are just tense. So let's get to it. I say what now it's easier for me because I don't work with an advertising agency per se. But I would say that over the past year, I was soaking in information about how advertising is terminally ill. It seems to have a self-immune disease because advertisers come to hate it. Publishers have come to hate it, even when it's the hand that feeds them. Consumers hate it, and everyone I talk to, they declare that they hate advertising, which is obviously not true. I will talk about it in a couple of minutes. And even advertising hates itself. It mocks itself. The self-referent advertising has become the thing of the last couple of years. But everything seems fine. I won't put in the doggy meme, but everything is on fire, but it seems to be fine. Why advertisers hate it? As I've worked in the advertising industry, we have come to realize, I mean, when I started in 1999, you would have made a key visual for your campaign that would have become a poster, a billboard, and then the headline would become your radio ad, and then you would run a TV ad. Right? It was simple. Right now, we have too many channels, too much content to manage, too many vendors, too many intermediaries, too many departments, even within any given organization. Right? There was the IT department, then it became the IT infrastructure department, and then the social media, and now there's digital, and then there's e-commerce. There is just too much of it to even imagine, let alone to manage. And the last thing that we actually can achieve is to make it work for us, because advertising has become ultimately ill and underperforming, we might say. Uh, those of you, I mean, I assume many of you know this and many of you are familiar with this thinking, but when you pay for advertising, if you are an advertiser, if you have a brand, you will never know the real value of your advertising. Um, and those of you who worked in a strategic planning department know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyone who has ever written an FE case knows exactly what I'm talking about, i.e., I have met once in my life a campaign which has achieved its assumed desired results. Yeah, in most of the other cases, the time for FE submission comes and we start searching for results. So we don't know. The advertising industry doesn't even know the results before it achieves them. It achieves some results. The advertising campaign or promotional campaign brings you some benefit, but you don't even know it. And that's, I think, this is the saddest thing for me as a strategic planner in advertising, that hardly ever we achieve the assumed outcomes. And, it's an adage as old as advertising itself, that I'm wasting half of my advertising budget, but I just don't know which half. And the worst news in this is that there is no chance to even identify which half of each dollar you spend is actually wasted, because you are being robbed by 23 intermediaries. And this is not coming from my fantasy. This is coming from the Pricewaterhouse report published a couple of years ago about how blockchain technologies can solve most of the of digital advertising problems. And that's the point where I'm coming from. I assume that this knowledge would already be spread all over the world, and everyone would be aware of this. Whereas we keep seeing day after day after day that this world is simply absent from the debate. Yesterday, I was running a workshop for one of the major advertising agencies in our country, and there was a trend presentation, 2023 trends presentation. And there were two words that were completely missing from the picture. It was Web3/blockchain and the metaverse. It's like a group of people went into an unknown territory. They went to explore a certain unknown world. Um, but then when they looked around their shoulder, there's nobody there to follow. The distance is just becoming bigger and bigger, because when I also attend groups of advertising professionals talking about blockchain, it's mostly talking about corruption, um, conflict, rug pulls, and Bitcoin. Nobody's talking about the real utility of Web3 for actual advertising. But who really benefits from it? There are not many sources here, but I want to assure you that I did my homework. Uh, one of the pieces of the homework comes from Augustin Fu, who is an independent ad fraud researcher, and he recently published a piece called "Who is really benefiting from ad fraud?" And there is a very difficult answer for all of us, because everyone does. We all do. It's in our common interest to keep this industry rolling, even if it looks, the ball that's rolling is reminding me more and more of a COVID-19 virus. And consumers hate it, or they say they hate it. Why? It's simple, because we can see that advertising kills our attention. It just directly kills our cognitive abilities. We say it, social media and smartphones, but it's not just the smartphones and social feeds. It's the constant distraction that comes your direction 6,000 times a day. It kills people's trust, because if we get misadvertised, if we get scammed, if we get pulled, it kills our trust. And advertising tends to oversell and overpromise things. It kills the web experience. That's what I even argued from the beginning, that any one of you, I will show it in a minute, but how advertising and all that advertising, that all the everything that comes with advertising, the results, the consequences of the advertising economy are bad for the web experience, for the content experience, for human emotions, right? And for those of you from Brazil, Sao Paulo, where the outdoor ads have been removed, know that sometimes advertising simply turns our surroundings ugly, and of course the data. I will come back to it, but critical thinking. Remember, I listen to people who say they hate advertising, but then I look at what they wear, right? And it seems to me that they might loathe certain part of advertising, but they certainly do not hate brands and do not hate brand promotion, right? This is an example. I won't play you the video for those of you who remember one of the most iconic ads for an automotive brand, Honda, hate, and is the best use of the word hate in advertising, in my humble opinion. And it wasn't hated. People still do not hate a great insight, right? If a brand comes to you knowing how you feel, knowing what you really care about, what you are about, we don't hate that. We don't hate great storytelling. This is the John Lewis, for 5 years straight being the most, or even more, being the most iconic and awaited advertising campaign of the year. So people don't hate great story being told from new and fresh and interesting angles. And they definitely do not hate dogs or a good, consistent, and well executed brand strategy. And there is a reason why I'm showing the pedigree in the metaverse, because it also shows how a brand with a true, consistent vision and the true purpose can actually be completely brand or creatively neutral. They just don't agnostic. They don't care if it's on TV, if it's in print, if it's a charity drive, or if it's a metaverse experience. Still, we are working on our love for dogs. So consumers don't hate it. And actually, I can bet that many of you listening in right now are wearing a certain huge and expensive logo, right? To become somebody else's advertising. And actually, so I would say that people don't really hate ads and they don't really hate brands. The world might be changing and we might have different brands playing different roles, but actually we don't hate them. We pay premium for premium brands that tell us a good story. So I would say people don't hate advertising. People hate only the last part of advertising. Is I wanted to avoid curse words, but they hate being manipulated. They hate to see that their data has been shuffled around and used only to deteriorate, to destroy their user experience of the internet, which is all performance advertising does. I know there might be people here listening in who will start hating me in 3 seconds, but that's exactly what performance advertising did to my attention span, my user experience, and many of my friends. The examples that you're going to see in the next 2-3 minutes don't come from me. I actually asked all of my friends on Facebook to give me examples of how advertising hurt the internet. And advertising broke the internet. If you know that this is a meme, I'm sorry, I'm a very, very bad meme creator. But there was a guy who made this poster made out of thousands of Lego bricks. And then on the first day of the exhibition, some random kid came and just broke the thing to pieces. They just tipped it over and broke it to pieces. So the same way, Tim Berners-Lee here on the picture has spent years preparing the www standard, and then advertising came and destroyed it. Why? Well, here is a random ad. Let's say I asked Google, what temperature is it out today? Okay, and I get an ad from a website, and first thing it wants to do is to know my location. And then it wants to disable the inability to disable notifications in my browser, right? And then it urges me to disable my ad blocker because the temperature outside is directly related to my willingness to see another advertising of the sponsor. And then it assures me, it values my privacy so much that I need to adjust or accept the cookies. And then it will advertise an hourly newsletter, and then the cookies, and then the chatbot, and then there is a, how do you call it, a recommendation, the NPS questionnaire before you even start using the website. So yeah, it's not just advertising, it's the UX in general that is sick in my opinion, but that's how it translates to your experience. And then you have a video ad playing on top with, a cursor you need to find. And then there is the content you actually came here to read in the first place. In our industry, there are many neurodivergent people, but for me, once I get through all these hurdles and finally get to the content I came there to read, I sometimes forget why I even entered the site. And then anything you came in to watch is being, divided into 3 to 4 to 5 sections with 2 ads between each sentence. And when you say, oh God, fuck that, I'm going out, why leave so soon? So everything is now counted. Your each movement of your mouse is being tracked, but just to make you more stupid, more frustrated, and more prone to buy. But not out of your own free will, but because you are digitally coerced to buy. So yeah, remarketing killed my well-being. And anyone of you who bought shoes online, this was like the best example. I just bought a pair of shoes. I had to leave my email, and then the engine obviously assumed that I'm going to be able to buy 51 pairs of shoes in the over the consecutive 51 weeks of the year, because why not? Right? Or I just ordered a gift for my friend, and it was from a drop shipping company. So they first collected the orders, then made the order, printed the hoodies, and my friend got his gift. A week later, I got an email saying that this exact item is 50% off because of morons like me who ordered it in the first place. So yeah, these are the examples that came from my friends. Fake traffic, fake clicks, the native advertising loops. I will not get into that, but if you ever clicked the native advertising tag and went on a spoof search website containing more spoof or fake advertising material, that would then create a loop back to the original website, or again back into Google. So yes, they are manipulations, digitally manipulated to artificially boost the results of any campaign. Clickbait. Come on, this is too obvious to even get into that, right? Calling everything not what it really is, or asking people questions that you have no intention of answering, but just to make them click on the banner. No room to breathe. In advertising, one of my or any of your designer friends will tell you, give them a room to breathe. Leave some space on your slide, leave some space on your website, leave some space in your ad for people to actually know, to be able to shift their focus. Now consumers are not able to shift their focus because everything, every pixel on a website is busy with content. The buy nowism. As a brand planner, as a person who is always into building brands, into building the emotional willingness, the memory, the long-lasting intent to buy, I was appalled and shocked when I heard the last click attribution for brand buys. It just shortened the importance of what we do to the least productive value. Find the X. We were all looking for the X, right? Default play with sound. So again, anyone who works on more than 3 browser tabs knows what I'm talking about. Suddenly there's a sound, you don't know where it's coming from. Are you turning schizophrenic or something? it's there. It's an ad that wants you to buy something and you don't even know which tab it's playing on. Content dilution, remarketing, and no capping. So all of you know these because uh, whenever you feel like you've seen one ad for 100th time and you start feeling coerced, you start feeling forced into buying, not encouraged, but forced into buying and thinking about something. Mm. Again, if we were in an audience, I would ask you who in the audience here, who in the room ever bothered to click manage consent, right? Not just allow all cookies, but to manage your cookies. And then make another click and check how many vendors are there with whom your data is being shared. I counted. I just selected it all. Control C, Control V. I put it in into Excel, and I ended up with 600 ad servers, parties, companies, making sure that your data is there, click sellers, traffic boosters, and all of those companies that steal your money, basically. Mm. There was a, it also is another proof of my impatience and frustration because the book Bad Men, I think Bob Hoffman published it in 2016. So we had 6 to 7 years to realize that advertising went from a minor nuisance to a major menace. And I encourage any of you who are not familiar with the book to give it a read because it will leave you with a sense of terror. And then, of course, came the social dilemma and the more, Netflixy, easier to digest portions of information on how the internet and advertising agencies and marketing people abuse our trust, our focus, and our goodwill. Uh, so I would say that, in a world where you actually don't need eyeballs, you don't need human eyeballs because there will be a bot publishing an ad and there will be a bot clicking the ad, and the advertiser will get their results. So I would say data matters, but humans don't matter anymore. We just don't think. We pretend to say that the insights matter, but our insights now are limited to people like what other people are buying. So let's turn it into social commerce event, right? Let's just drive people's greed and willingness to buy without even touching any human values at all. Uh, so yeah, bot makes humans redundant in the advertising equation. There's something has happened, and now mm, the advertising doesn't really care about humans. Uh, and yes, we are all. You here in the audience, me as a consumer, we are all treated like milk cows, like potential buyers, like wallets, while being called a community or being a family or being close to your brand. So we have those of you who come from Poland. We have this because in the times of the pandemics, there were groups of people who were more supportive of the healthcare system and people who are very dubious. I mean, doubtful of the healthcare system. So there was the meme circulating the Polish internet. Hey, you ought to see a doctor. No, I'm gonna put a patch on it. And when we tried for the last year to talk to the advertising industry, to the ad tech industry, to visit advertising conferences, write many thought pieces, presentations, and articles about how to fix this situation, but it seems to have fallen on deaf ears. So this is why it seems to me like I kind of feel like the advertising business is busy networking, having drinks, and listening to each other and talking that they do have a problem. And you come and tap them on the shoulder and say, "Hi, guys, we have a solution." And they'll respond, as we were saying, there is a problem. So going back to the presentation, to that picture I showed you a minute ago, what do you do with a kid that breaks a toy? I promised that we would cover this. This will be a more entertaining or psychological for all the parents among you. But what do you actually do with a kid that breaks a toy? I actually checked on the internet, and usually parents are advised to um, get the kid to fix the toy with them, to help them fix the broken toy. But here's a question to you. If global advertising belongs to four companies, and the past decade was all about concentration, consolidation, and monopolization of the industry, would you trust these four kids to actually fix the toy for you? Right? I wouldn't personally. I won't be naming any names, but I wouldn't say that the guys responsible for destroying our user experience and our satisfaction mm, are the are in the best position to fix it. Remembering this one. And for the past year, what I have been doing was only mainly exploring how Web3, how blockchain technologies could improve our well-being, improve our economic standing, and improve advertising effectiveness. And I have to tell you that the solutions are there. We already gathered enough experience and connections to see that the solution is there and it's waiting, but it seems that everyone waits for Google to implement it. This comes from as another joke, but we had a presentation for the fourth biggest smartphone manufacturer in the world. And we felt that our thinking is fresh, insightful, innovative, forward looking. And I kid you not, and I swear, they said, "Oh, this is really, really innovative. I haven't heard anybody speak about smartphones the way you do, gentlemen, but let's wait till Nokia introduces this idea, and then we might want to follow." So this is the level of innovative thinking in the advertising industry and in marketing. Um, but for those of you who are interested in Web3, you already know that blockchain is transparent. So it's easy to just imagine that all advertising transactions would ever become visible and accessible in a visible global database. This is enough of a shock. To make advertising fair, we know we have many, many examples. I won't get into all of those, but advertising has simply become unfair because the giants have all the money and all the budgets. Because small companies and startups are most likely left with organic media, organic social media like Telegram, Twitter, or Discord. We don't really have access to the global advertising market, especially Web3 companies, because there has been a blanket ban on anyone who ever mentions the word crypto. And they are simply delisted, blacklisted, and do not have access to advertising. There is a solution which is peer to peer, i.e., it connects people directly, just like a real time bidding system would. But here it really is peer to peer and instant. So it doesn't connect bidders, it connects the real advertisers. It's almost instant. There's a asterisk here, but for those of you who know how blockchains work, there is a couple of minutes between the input and the output, but it's usually between 4 and 8 minutes. Whereas in the classic advertising business, between input and output, there are weeks, and between investment and your invoice being paid, there are sometimes 4 months. So what we I tried to not speak about our company too much because it's not about us. It's about you, and it's about the common future. But there is a solution already in place, and it's so simple you wouldn't believe it. Just connect RTB. Just connect the bidding system and the serving system with the payment system, and essentially create a prepaid advertising network with a blockchain proof. So you put money forward, The transaction is instant, and then you know exactly where the money went, who is the receiver, what was the amount, and what it was for. So again, I'm talking about the Web3 community, not necessarily about our company, but we have decided to give the ad industry its own internet. So imagine a parent whose kid breaks a toy, and instead of saying, "Oh, now you have to fix it," they say, "Okay, I have a new toy for you." But don't tell them that this time they cannot break it. Because for anyone who knows blockchain, we know that immutability, inability to change the record, to influence what's there on the blockchain, is one of the underlying features of any of them. So what we ended up creating was an infinite, open, and democratic advertising marketplace. Because if you just imagine that you can access a system without asking anyone for permission, you have your Web3 identity. You may access an advertising system on equal rights with anybody else. I know some of you might hear it with a worried ear, but I will address it very, very soon. Because yeah, when you imagine an ad serving system connected with a payment system, I just saw a huge stadium, an infinite stadium, where anyone could offer their advertising space, and anyone who's looking for a client, a customer, could enter and just be matched directly. But what more Web3 gives you as an advertiser or as an advertising system? There are no closed gardens. So there isn't a situation where you get all your data and targeting from a company that doesn't tell you how they do it. Right? They don't, you usually have direct access to the data that you're building your campaign on. There are no closed systems. In the understanding that you don't need to have a specific login to a specific database. Let's call Google, Facebook, or Amazon databases, right? Where you need your access, you need to have an account there in order to access their advertising services. There are no arbitrary decisions. So nobody will suddenly delist you because you are in a wrong business, or nobody will tell you that you are not legal to advertise, unless it's obviously objectively illegal. There are no discretionary rewards. There are smart contracts that ensure that everything is fair and automated. So if an ad is delivered to site X, the publisher is paid amount Y. Right? This is so simple. There is nobody who will 3 months later tell you that they have doubts regarding your click rate, and they will suddenly demonetize your website. Right? There isn't, such situations are possible, but in a completely different way, because the system is community governed. For those of you who were interested in how Web3 companies are being run, the decentralized autonomous organization means that each consumer, each user of a platform can veto a decision, can say that they have a different idea, can propose an improvement. And just imagine that a user like you or me could post their proposal of changing Facebook interface, right? And submit it to community voting. And each of the coin holder or account holder could have an influence on what the company does on the server and technical side. There's full context and control, and users know exactly how they're being targeted. That's funny because in today's world, we're talking about mass surveillance, and I mentioned the social network, social dilemma. But actually, in Web 2, you never know how you're being targeted. We never know how many data points a company has on us. While in Web 3, any one of you who has a Web 3 wallet knows exactly what data is there on their wallet, and knows exactly what data is being accessed by whom and with what purpose. And there's the advertiser publisher quality score. Let's go deeper into that, because I mentioned no censorship. So many of you might be asking a question, what about quality? If there's no censorship, then it will negatively influence quality. But no, there can be custom advertising networks. Last week, we signed a deal with creators of the first and largest medical metaverse. So this was an idea that was with us for the past couple of months, and we said, okay, we can make custom advertising networks. Imagine a system where every user is a patient, and every supplier is either a doctor, a practitioner, a medical or pharmaceutical company, right? There is most likely 90 to 100% match between the advertising product and the actual real needs of the patients. This is already possible. Another thing we can imagine, because I said no censorship, right? Accessible by anyone. So we think, okay, it will be prone to attacks and abuse. But imagine we could create an advertising network only addressed to children, only addressing children. But of course, for those of you who know regulations and limitations for advertising to minors, know exactly that there isn't a wide open gate where anyone can enter. You need to obey the rules. You need to follow protocols. You need to follow regulations. And Web3, what it enables, let's say your company needs to KYC, know yourself, to reveal your true identity on blockchain. Then you need to comply to a set of regulations, which can be the proof of these regulations can be delivered to you as an NFT or as a token. And if you are a company which holds the KidSafe token, you are allowed to enter this specific advertising network, right? So there is like a visa or a passport for anyone to enter a specific sub network, but the network in general is open to anyone. Again, about privacy and wallet targeting, people say that blockchain will be the ultimate tool of the beast, that we will all be targeted personally. We might be, but we already see systems in place like Swash, which actually cover your personal data with a specific token. And everything the advertising does see is your token number, and they will never, ever even know your wallet number, let alone your name and address. Okay. And for those of you who hate the surveillance economy, like, damn, I wish some marketers could actually peek into my wallet before calling me with an offer, right? Don't you sometimes feel that it would help the advertiser to actually know how much you can afford before they start bombarding you with advertising? This is again what's possible with Web3 solutions. Um, I already mentioned that in current advertising system, any advertising or media agency is waiting for around 4 months to get paid for the work they do, whether it be creative, whether it be media, whether it be technology. You wait for 3 to 4 months. Whereas on blockchain, if you connect the serving system with the payment system, your money is in your wallet within an hour or even less. The last thing I want to talk about, to make loops here to the polo t-shirt thing, in the old world, you would pay a premium to wear a designer t-shirt in real life. With solutions like ours, you can actually make money by wearing somebody else's t-shirt, by promoting a company. And in the metaverse, in virtual worlds, your t-shirt can be monitoring who you meet. It's like a smart wearable. So instead of me wearing a polo t-shirt and paying a premium for it, I get a t-shirt promoting a company, and I get automatically paid for doing this. Or what the other thing that is now possible, imagine hostesses and hosts promoting your brand as NPC AI powered self-sustaining online avatars. This is all possible. These are all examples of ready solutions creative solutions, technological solutions ready for you in the Web3 era. But my own question is, are you willing to listen, or are we as an industry? Because as I said, still half of me loves the advertising industry, loves critical, creative thinking. But are we actually ready to listen, to hear that so the solution is there? I don't know. But if you're not ready, I just managed to do it in 40 minutes. Um, as I said, I moved ships, and we will just be sitting here on a bank of a river, looking at the fire on the other side, waiting for the advertising industry to wake up. That's it from me. I hope it was entertaining. I hope it wasn't too auto promotional. I was trying as hard as I can to stick only to technology, and what refers to our industry. Um, but yes, the solution is there, and I'm ready to answer all your questions, inquiries, and if I'm not ready, I will honestly say so. Thank you very much for having me. I hope it came across well, and yeah, that's it from me. Let's end the show.
Wonderful, Jack. Thank you very much. Really insightful. Love the way we were going in depth and exploring kind of fields that need to be talked about, with areas that are in a lot of ways still stigmatized or young, and be figured out, like the Web3. I guess, like, leading in straight away, I'll start us off. By the way, if you guys do have questions to ask, be sure to enter them in the Q&A section, not normal chat. Just click Q&A, and then you can type out your questions. Um, First thing that comes to mind for me is, you mentioned this idea of wearing advertising, and it is a weird phenomenon, right? Like, for a long time, it's kind of gotten weird to a stage where there are some obviously appreciate brands. I think Nike comes to mind when footwear, that's something you're willing to wear blatantly. It becomes a sign of almost prestige, right? I think one kind of element we've noticed is a difficulty with initially achieving that quality when you're younger. I think I don't know if you follow like esports compared gaming, but over there we have a team called 100 Thieves, and what they've done kind of remarkably shows this, where they put the quality over the brand exposure, and it comes in afterwards. Do you think that's the better approach here, where if you deliver something that looks good as opposed to just flagrantly exposes your brand everywhere, people are going to go out of their way to support and expose your brand?
Both hands down. I mean, I was as a person brought up and raised by the advertising industry. I will just quote Mr. Binet, and it was Peter Field and Les Binet. They said 80% of any advertising you run should be brand, and not more than 20% should be short term and sales. And when you just wait for 3 days, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because the brands who were focused on the short term, they will never see long term results. And the brands that only see long term, that only invest in the highest creative quality, highest production quality, even if it means saving money and doing things um, more seldom than competitions, having a lower share of voice but higher quality. This is huge, and we can see from the examples like Nike acquiring the Artifact company, or even the companies that stay in the traditional fashion, like Balenciaga, who actually just they prove that they understand the way the people think, the way they want to look, and the way their digital and real worlds intertwine. That I just have respect for that, and I believe that they're making, Balenciaga or Nike, that they are the ultimate quality. So they are the ultimate long-term goals drivers. And I have seen too many startups and companies just focused on the last click attribution and buy now, invest now, and let's go to the moon together, to not be sure that brand and quality and emotion and values are everything that we should be investing in.
I think the crazy thought is that, with the recent developments around, especially the tech side, right, with these bubbles starting to burst, people realizing that actually profitability has to come ahead of long-term building. There's kind of a spooky feeling where we're going to see a lot of these bigger organizations lead in the way of cost cutting and just trying to, like, get a quick buck now. But interestingly, what you're saying is actually, it sounds like what you're saying at least is that there's a gap, probably an unrealized gap by the majority, that investing in long-term brand scaling, right, where you set yourself up to be that premium, to be that quality, to be that go-to, is viable, is desirable, and in fact is probably something that most people aren't looking at now.
It's surprising because maybe I'm a victim of just learning something new every day, but I thought that everybody know it already, because we've had I've had my share of ups and downs and bumpy roads, but I saw three crisis in my lifetime. I saw the 2001, the first burst. Then we saw the 2008 huge collapse. Then we saw the media crisis, and now the current collapse of many brands. And each time, and the pandemic, of course, I almost pushed the pandemics out of my, but every time media were full of titles, how to build brands in a crisis. And I thought that I read this piece 5 times, so each of the people I meet should have read it at least once. But yes, it was everybody was repeating themselves, especially when times get tough. You need to prove that you are in for the long run.
Mhm.
You don't say, oh, the war is coming, so there's a crisis, let's concentrate and buy only from ourselves. No, we know we will get through this with you together. This creates a sense of community, of commune between consumer and the brand. And we have seen this even in the pandemics.
Yeah.
Those who showed enough empathy, ingenuity, and innovation, they are still, they were untouched by the tough times.
And I think innovation is the key word there, right? Like there's this temptation to go with the flow, and the flow right now is freemium models, moving towards cheaper products, right? To sustain yourself. Everyone else is doing it, but we'll use the Nike example again. Nike, when they originally started doing what they were doing, they started bringing in products from overseas that weren't originally seen as worthwhile, right? They had to essentially kind of gamble a little bit, but it was a calculated gamble. And I think you see that in many different ways. Like one big astonishing one for a lot of people is the realization that there's companies that charge you for an email address now and you pay monthly. And people are willing to submit to that because they've gotten tired of that kind of data manipulation side of things you were talking about earlier. Instead, people are showing the willingness, surprisingly, in fact, where it feels like there's less money becoming available to pay premiums for that integrity of the brand.
Exactly. And now you see that people still do it.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that change in an advertising landscape, because maybe we are moving from just the brands that prove that you have the money, right? Like most of the designer and very luxury brands just prove that you have money. They don't really prove what values you believe in. So I think that the brand landscape might be changing, because there are brands like, I don't know, in our industry, the brand, the Solana brand, the Ethereum brand. There are different new brands, or the Bitcoin brand just did something to people. But let's stick to the traditional business. If I think when you mentioned innovation, when tough times come, what the uninnovator does is they want to cling to the past. They want to sustain the income they were generating before the crisis, and it makes them do the silliest thing, because it devaluates the brand as a whole. Even yesterday, we saw an ad, like it's going to be half price for a lifetime. So my first thought as a consumer, so this was the original value of your product,
Yeah.
and it still might be at a premium, coming at me at half price. So then there is no chance after the crisis, after tough times, for the same brand that went on a 50% discount to come back to being the most trusted, or the main brand used. They will be the most commonly used, but they will have no authority, and possibly no consumer love, and they will not build a love brand. But I don't know, maybe the concept of brand and the brand relationship and brand love will change soon, because, as you said, the brand itself changed, the business changes, the amount of disposable income changes. And but I sometimes can't see it coming. The still high quality luxury boutiques and streets are filled with people wearing somebody else's logo, being proud of it. So I would say that for a long time brands will play a very important role in building our self identity. And I think that few of us want to just identify ourselves with "I bought it cheap," right?
Yeah, I think it's that kind of like it leans itself to that trust element you've been emphasizing, right? This feeling that when you go on discount, that sets the new margin. Anyone who bought at the premium kind of feels betrayed, right? It's almost like you've lost their trust. I'm going to keep using Nike because I just think Nike is one of the best ones to do it in a very long time. They might have sales, but by the time they have sales, something new is in, right? It's become a very old product, and you respect the cycle. It's not like we've released it and sales weren't that great this quarter, so now we're going to decrease it by 20% to try and recoup our losses. That's where things crumble, from what you're saying. And by the way, I just want to like move into a question before I give you a response to that
Sure,
because
sure.
we got Maria coming in with an interesting one. She says, first of all, thank you very much for such a mind blowing presentation. I think we can all agree on that. What can be 2 or 3 easy wins for a well established brand to enter and test Web3, say for like small businesses or personal brands?
I would say there are the three main steps. First is to start using it,
Mhm.
because shockingly many people from my advertising agencies I had worked with, I said, "Hey dude, what are you doing?" "And I moved to Web3." "Oh my god, you must be crazy. And by the way, do you have a Web3 wallet?" "No, I don't." "What is it?" And if you say, "Hey guys, go into crypto," it's like, "No, I'm not into Bitcoin, really. I don't care about this whole crypto thing." So first thing is stop thinking about crypto and Web3 as just currencies, because basically on at the very, very bottom of this, there is a groundbreaking technology. And we promised, we had a deal not to shill, but there is a blockchain made for just one purpose. For example, our company made a blockchain, but it's just for one purpose. If you remember brands being built for one purpose only, it doesn't happen. But the second step is to actually start exploring. To me and to anyone who has ever even talked to a hacker, if you don't use it, you don't know how to use it.
Mm.
So if you don't play Roblox with your kids, or if you don't Roblox with on your own, if you don't get your wallet and even visit Decentraland, if you will see what's possible. You will already see advertising being there on the outside of a world inside of your computer,
Mhm.
inside of your apartment. So these are the two main steps. Just get involved and start exploring. Let's get in touch and see how the virtual worlds are being built, established, connected, and developed. And I think the fourth easiest step, because the technology is already there, is to try to run an advertising campaign in the connected worlds, because that's something I didn't want to say, but other current advertising companies, current ad tech companies, just cannot reach the blockchain based virtual worlds
Yeah.
because of at least two reasons. One is that Web3 kind of loathes Web2 and the giants that are operating in the old world, and none of the old giants has the technology yet. So it must have come from an independent place. But I would say, try to run an ad campaign in Decentraland, CryptoVoxels, on some Web3 websites, and see, because we mentioned we need to calculate how much it added to your brand.
Yeah, I think the other interesting thing to kind of highlight there, that you've been talking about this whole idea of like long term brand building, the trust element. I think that's a big part of Web3, right? It's very young. Obviously, there are people that are going to exploit it for nefarious deeds. If you can come in early and you have the runway to show that you are an authentic product,
Yes.
right? That you are there for the long haul and not just the cheap cash in. I
Yes.
think there's a very big upside to be gained there. It's just getting the initial, I want to call them trust keepers in the door, right? The initial people that you can rely on.
Yes. Yes. I agree with you, because it changes the rules. Because if you want to advertise in the virtual world, you need to talk to the community. So you need to show humility. You need to show openness, integrity, and long-term commitment. So I would say that's that. But coming in cautiously, coming in, with respect and with small steps, is, I think, the most advisable strategy. Mm, yeah, because as you said, if we come too strong, too hot, and too greedy, we will be rejected as an industry and as a brand and as a business.
Definitely. Well, it's been very insightful. I've loved talking to you, Jack. If people have any other questions for you, I'm sure they can reach out. They have your information, and I'm sure you're
Yes.
willing to start new conversations on the matter. But we overran a bit. I think it was worth it to do so. So
I thought I was
no,
keeping my
you
time.
didn't over. You kept it good, Jack. But I made sure that Q&A, I was machine gun. I was keeping us going, making sure we milked you for all the knowledge we could.
You're
It has been
awesome.
an absolute pleasure, though, my friend, to talk to you. And fingers crossed, we'll hear more from you and the work you're doing in the future.
Thank you so much. Going back to the coffee, to the Pine and Slack, so we can chat with anyone. Okay, good luck with the rest. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, folks. We will be back up with our next talk in just a few minutes. There was meant to be like a 10-minute break, 15-minute break. I may have made the executive decision to just stretch that Q&A out for all it was worth. So about 5 minutes time, we'll be back with our next talk. So go get yourself a quick snack, maybe slap yourself around the face or get some coffee. And it depends on whether you're on a caffeine withdrawal moment in life. And we should be back in just a few minutes with our next speaker.
This is all we got. Remember the revolution in our minds. This is all we got.
Lock me out of this life institution. I am angry and I am illusions. Yes, I hate, but it's not a solution. Try my best, but I'm just a human. Oh,